Hello everyone, you're welcome back to my channel GVista Codes. If you're new here, I would appreciate if you subscribe and also hit the notification button to get notified when I post amazing tutorials like this. So in today's tutorial, we'll be looking at how to create a Laravel-based AI bot using the HuggingFace Inference API. So what is HuggingFace? I call it the warehouse of AI models. Yeah. So this is the HuggingFace website, and they have so many AI models here, most of which are open source. All you need is to use them and nothing else. So we have models for computer vision, natural language processing, audio, tabular. So if you want to give your application a touch of AI, yeah, you can consider going through their documentation and seeing how you can interact with some of their models. I personally use a model here for my master's thesis. I used it to create a chatbot. All I had to do was to fine tune it to my use case, and at the end of the day, I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. But today we'll be creating a chatbot as well, but we'll be using their API-Inference, which is like endpoints that we can call to interact with models. So let's go to their documentation and go to API-Inference, which is the first one. Just click on it. So the documentation is here. I'll add the link to the description below so you can check it out personally. And it has everything. You can go through. What we'll be doing today is chat completion. So we'll be doing chat completion. You can go through or check out the models. All these models can be used for that. So let's say we want to use this model, just click on it and check it out. You can go to deploy and go to inference provider, and here you can see the endpoint that you need to call, and then the data, and then the format that the request should look like. So this is how the data should be: message, role, and content would actually hold whatever prompt that you want to send to the model. Yeah, so this is what we will be implementing. And before we do that, let me show you how to create tokens, because that is what we'll be using to interact with these models. As you can see from here, you need a bearer token in the authorization header before you can interact with these models. So you can easily create one from your Hugging Face account. So you just go here and just click on access tokens, and I already have one created, but it's so simple. You just go to create new token, and let's say my new token, let's say this is the name. And remember to tick all this or check all these, because this is what we'll be using for um, interacting with the models. We'll be doing inference. So remember to check all these, and then you create your token. So copy your token and save it somewhere. And yeah, so you'll be seeing this in the implementation in the next section. So see you on the code inside. Yeah, so now let's create our Laravel API. So I already have my Git bash opened, and we're going to use the Laravel installer. So the command is Laravel new, and let's call it Lara bot with two T's. I already have one installed for one with one T, one created for one T. So let's just use two T's. Yeah, we don't care about the UI kits or the testing framework. So the scaffolding takes some time. So I think what I'm gonna do is to pause the recording and get back to it once it's done. Yeah, so see you soon. Thanks for hanging in there. So now our application is done. All we have to do is to open it in our Visual Studio Code. So let's cd larabot with two T's, and then let's open this in VS Code. So application is opened in VS Code. Yeah, think at this point we don't need the terminal. We can close it. And now let's stick to the terminal in VS Code. Yeah, so our Laravel API is done scaffolding, and because I want us to use REST API, we at this point don't have Laravel API routes available. So what we have to do is to run this command php artisan install API. Yeah, so this is going to install or create an API route. That's where we can write all our API endpoints. Yeah, you can as well handle them in the web routes file, but I prefer the API route since we'll be doing the REST API. Yeah, we're not going to write too many API endpoints though. No, let me just say no. And yeah, so now let's serve this application as in run it and see if it's working. So php artisan with one R, artisan serve. Yeah, let me open this application. Yeah, our application is up and running. So at this point, all we have to do is write code. Yeah, because our Laravel API app is up and running. So before we start with the coding aspect, let's get back to Hugging Face. And I've already created a token. So let's go back to the documentation. So documentation, go to API-Inference. Yeah, and then go to getting started. So this is as simple as that. So we are going to use curl, but we are going to use Gazelle in Laravel, so we wouldn't be using curl directly. And all we have to do is use this endpoint. We've already created a token, so this is pretty much it. This is how the header is going to be like, and we're going to hit this endpoint and then send some data and then get a response. So I think if we scroll down, we see the format of how the data should be sent. So let me go to chat completion. I think I might see, yeah, so this is how it should be sent. So we have the message, and then inside the message, so this is an array, and inside it we should have the role key, which should be a user, and then content, and this should hold whichever message or prompt that we want to send to the model. So yeah, this is what we're going to do. So first of all, let's create a service where we'll handle all the logic to Hugging Face. So let's go to app. Let's create a new directory called services. Yeah, and in here we're going to create a new file called, let's call it bot service.php. So this is a simple PHP class that is going to handle all the logic for communicating to Hugging Face. So PHP and class bot service. Yeah, and in here we're going to define some variables. So these variables are actually the same that we'll be passing to an instance of or to the API call. So yeah, the first one I think should be the API key. So protected API key, and then the next one I think should be the base URL, which will be the URL that we'll be hitting on Hugging Face. So base URL, and then the model itself, the name of the model that we want to interact with. So protected model, and then the last one will be client, which would be our HTTP client that we'll be using. So we use Gazelle. So protected client, yeah. So let's create our constructor, underscore construct. So this is just an empty constructor. and we're going to do this dot client is equal to new. So we're going to use, yeah, okay, yeah, it's imported. That's cool. So we're going to use Gazo. This is our HTTP client that we're going to use to send the request to Hugging Face. So it's good that it's imported. So this is our client. And why do we have, oh, public function? Sorry, I didn't add a function. Yeah, public function underscore construct. Yeah, and now, so what I like to do is sometimes to repeat this. You hold Shift and Alt and your down key. Yeah, so that is what I do most of the time. And then I only change what I have to change. So now we have the client. We should do for API. So this is basic OOP. So API key. And then the API key will be taking it from our environment variable. So for now, let's just leave it as an empty string. Later, we will take it from our environment variable. Yeah, and the model. So model. Let's go to Hugging Face. Yeah, so for the model, we go to getting started. I think let's go to chat completion. Yeah, and let's use the first model, which is Google Gmail. So let's use that one. Click on it, go to deploy, and go to inference providers. So let's switch to curl, and we can copy the endpoint here. So we copy this one. Let's go back to VS Code, and let's just paste this here in place of model. So this will be the, yeah, this should be our URL actually. So let me just change it to base URL. Yeah, this should be our base URL, sorry. So yeah, base URL. And then let's have one for model. So I think we can change this to model. And what we have to do for the model is that we just copy the model name. So we copy the name here. Yeah, just copy the name and we have it here as our model. So I already created an API key. So let me copy that from where I pasted it. And yeah, so this is the API key. So the best practice is that we save that in our env. So let's create it as hugging underscore face underscore API underscore key. And yeah, so this will be our API key. And then we're going to use this in the application. So let's go back here. And instead of putting here directly, what we do is that we call the env helper, and then we call HuggingFace API. Yeah. So I think the constructor is set. Now let's create a method called generate response. We can name it whatever. So let's call it generate response. So this will be a public function generate response, and this will take a prompt. We can as well type this to a string, and so this is the prompt that we'll be passing outside from our API. We pass the prompt and then we process the prompt and send it to Hugging Face. So first of all, one thing that I would like to mention when it comes to developing this chatbot is that I'm using a trick or a feature that we call prompt engineering. And prompt engineering actually tells the model how it should give you an answer. Yeah. So you use prompt engineering to kind of put the model in a box. So no matter what you ask the model, it would give you an answer based on the box that you put the model inside. So um, whatever we get from outside, whatever prompt we get from outside, before we pass it to the model, we have to append it to our engineered prompt so that when it goes to the model on Hugging Face, based on the context, the engineered prompt gives the model a context, and the model is going to generate an answer based on that. I have already created an engineered prompt, so I don't want um, us to go through that. So let me just create the function, and then I'll copy and paste the prompt. So engineered prompt. So this is it. And in here, we take the prompt. That will be passed from outside, and when we append it to our engineered prompt. So let me copy and paste the engineered prompt. It's pretty long, so I didn't see the need to write it all here. So this is our engineered prompt. So you can use ChatGPT to generate this. It's not that difficult. So all I'm doing is that I'm telling the model that you are models, this, that, and you are supposed to help users do this and that. Like I put it in a box, and then I also tell the model how I want the responses to be structured. Yeah. So this is like you 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 restricting the model. So I also have this section that you can see. I tell the model that for some reason, if there is any profane word or any adult content, the model should start with a response, and it should give me the test red flag. Yeah. So you can go through the engineered prompt after this. I'll be posting this on my GitHub so you can get the code, the source code from GitHub. Yeah. So this is our engineered prompt. Now, this engineered prompt is actually appended to, or we append the prompts that we get from outside. So this is it. This is the part where we appended the prompt. Did I miss something? Prompt. Yeah. Let me see if I missed something. Yeah, that is it. Okay, it's great. So I thought that I missed something. So here, before we pass the prompts to the model, we call our apply engineered prompt, and then we give it this our prompt that is coming from our side. Yeah. So here we have our engineered prompt, which is equal to this apply engineered prompt, and then we pass the prompts from our side to it. Yeah. And now let's prepare the data that we'll be giving to the model. So the data that will be given to the model, as I've already shown you, should take a specific format. Okay, so let's make it pretty simple. I think let's create it outside, and then before we pass it to the HTTP request. So let's call it post data, and this will take what the name of the model that we want to interact with. So the name of the model, and we can call this dot model because we already have it. And also Hugging Face needs to have the prompt in the message key. So whatever we are sending as a prompt should come in the message key. So in message, this is also an associative array that holds the role that I showed you earlier from the Hugging Face documentation. So this role should be user. So this is the user, this role is user. And then the content, we have another key called content. Sorry, content. And content will hold the engineered prompt. So content will hold the prompt that is coming from outside basically. Yeah. So there is another key which is stream. Yeah, this shouldn't be equal to, yeah, there's another key which is stream. And what stream does is that true means that the model should stream the response. False means that it should process everything and send it all at once. So stream means it will send the response bit by bit. So as it generates the response, it shouldn't come all at once. But that is not what we want. We want to get the response all at once. So yeah, and we have our data prepared. So this is what we're going to pass to the API call. And now let's do the API call. Let's put it in a try catch block so that we can monitor any errors that might pop up. Exception E. I would like to log. That's what I do sometimes. So this is the log info, and I log the exception, and as well maybe send some cool message to the front end. So let's say our message would be error, and this would be, let's say, failed to generate prompt. Yeah, as simple as that. Yeah, so we've finished with the catch block. Now let's handle our main logic in the try block. So we have response, which is going to be this dot client. And remember, the client is our HTTP client. So this client, the Gazelle client. So this is client, and we're making a post request. So post request, we pass some data. The first parameter is the URL, so the base URL, where it's going to, the base URL. And then the next one is the headers. So this also I will just copy and then tell you what it's doing. So let me put it here in the headers. Yeah, so in the headers we have the authorization is bearer type, and we'll be using the API key from HuggingFace, the one that we got. And then we have content type to be JSON because we're making oh, this should be this base URL. Sorry, my keyboard. Yeah, this does base URL. So yeah, we get in there. And the last thing that we need to add to this is a key called JSON. This is for Gazelle client. So this JSON key tells Gazelle clients that this is where we are putting the data, and it should convert the data that we are passing to it as JSON. So here is where we send the main data that we want to send to Hugging Face, and which is this one. So we have our post data here. Yeah, and our response is okay. Now, when we get a response, we get a response body. So here we say we call JSON decode because it would be in JSON, and since we're in Laravel, we have to decode the JSON response. So we get a response, and we call get body method on the response. Yeah, I think at this point we should just log to see if we're doing well, and then let's just log the body response body. Yeah, we're getting somewhere. At this point, we can do a quick test to see if our code is working as expected. So let's go to our API route, and let's just simply create a new. I'll just duplicate this one, and we'll just name this bot, and it's going to be a post request. And yeah, and here let's remove the middleware. We don't need it. We don't need the middleware. So this is where we're going to call our bots service. So let's say we have our bot, which is equal to new bot service. By the way, let's give this a namespace. So let's give it a namespace of app, yeah, app services. So bot service, we call this bot service. And now we call our generate response method from the bot service, and then we pass the prompt. So we'll be passing the prompt to this request. So we get a prompt from our request object. So we go to request and we'll be naming it as prompt. So I'll use prompt. Yeah. So the name here should also correspond to the name that you would give to the prompt from wherever you call it from, maybe your API client or your application. So you should be very, very careful about that. So I'm calling it prompt. That means that I should pass it as prompt. Yeah. And so I think I can return this, but for now let's just keep it like this. Yeah. And just for testing purposes, let's just keep it like this. And let's use Postman to do a quick test to see what is happening. So um, the endpoint is API bot, and we would like to input some data. So the data that we are giving to this is JSON, so raw and JSON, and we say prompt. So the key is prompt, and the message that we are giving to this, the message that we are passing should be, so let's say I want to create a Laravel course. Yeah, or I would like to create a Laravel course. This is just simple. So let's send this message and later check our logs to see if we got a reply. So let's send this message. So let's hit send. I hope we don't have any issues. Yeah, we ran into an issue and preview. Oh, yeah, the method is post, not get. So let's hit this. And yeah, so this mostly comes with the API key. I run into this issue. So we can check our logs and see that storage logs. Yeah, so we have an issue, and the issue is definitely from the API key. I ran into it too. So curl decimal this. Oh yes. So I think we made a mistake. Yeah, with the URL. Yeah. So let's try one more time. Yeah. But I encountered some a similar one that had to do with the API key. But let's try. But let me clear the logs first so that we don't get confused. Let me clear our log file and go to Postman, hit send, and let's see. We run into another error. Which says what? Unprocessed entity, missing body, messages failed, input model. Okay, so this should be messages. My bad, not message. So it should be messages. My bad. Yeah. Okay. So now let's see. Hope we don't run into any error again. Yeah. So there was no error. And so this was the response. So you see, sure. So I sent a message that I would want a Laravel course, and due to the engineered prompt, you see how the model gave us the answer. Sure, I can help you with that. And then it goes to give us the title, the accept, the description of the course. Pretty cool. Yeah, and this is what we expect. This is what we wanted from the model. So if we go back to our uh, engineered prompt, you can see that this is the same thing we told the model to do. So give us a title, give us an excerpt, give us a description. So in this particular example is good for maybe form inputs. Let's say you have an e-learning platform and you want to create a course. So an admin or an instructor can just write a prompt, and then the model will generate this answer. So all we have to do on our part as developers is to just get the data from the response, the model's response, and then populate our form inputs. As simple as that. So this is a very simple use case, and there are so many use cases that you can think of. Yeah. So this means that our model is working as expected. That's pretty cool. And now let's see where the response is coming from. So inside choices, we have an array in the zero, we have another array, and we have a key called messages. And inside messages, we have another array, and it has a key called content, and that is what holds this one. Yeah. So this is the reason why I wanted us to log this first so that we see how the messages come in. So inside array, yeah, you go in there, yeah. So we're going to do the same thing. That's how we're going to access this message and then bring it to the front end. So let's go back to our, I think let's import exception class. Let's go back here just after the body. And then now let's get our response, the bot's response. So the bot's response, let's name it bot response would be the body that we have here, and inside the body we have choices, and inside choices we have, this should be an array. Inside choices we have array index 0, you can see from the logs. So choices array index 0, which is another array. So that is what we're doing. So choices array index 0, there is another called message, and inside message we have another array called contents. Yeah, as simple as that. And I think with this we should be able to access. So I'm using this operator to say, okay, if we don't get anything, just bring us an empty string. Yeah. So again, let's go here. Choices array in the 0, messages. Inside messages we have an array, and we get the response from the context section. Yeah, so that is what we just did here, and this is what we're going to return to our user. So return bot response. Yeah. Now we can test from our API client again, and we should get the response here. So I want to create a Laravel course, and oh, my bad. I just remembered that we are returning it here, but we are not returning it here as well. So, but response, or we can just return this. So let's return bot response. Yeah, let's do this one more time, and we should get a, yeah, and this is it. So sure, I can help you do that. It gives us a title and it gives us an excerpt. Just change this from Laravel to, let's say, maybe React, or let's say a machine. I want to create a machine learning course, and then hit send. Yeah, and the model is going to generate. Yeah, sure, I can help you with that. So machine learning fundamentals is really cool. Yeah, so this is another instance. I want to create a PHP course, and yeah, the model is giving us a really cool answer. So it's working as expected, but I think it can do better. And what I mean by it doing better is that if I change this, let's say I change this to I want only the accept and send this to the model, you see, sure, I can help with that. So it didn't give us any accept. That means that once we made another request to the model, it forgot about the previous conversation that we had, which is not cool because if we don't just need it for the use case that I gave you just to fill a form or something, and we want a bot that we can interact with, then it should be context aware. It should be aware of our previous convo. And this is the reason why I'm saying that we can do better. So in the next section, we'll be modifying the current code that we have to add some functionalities that will make the bot context aware. So it will be aware of our previous conversation, and when we ask something, it can modify it based on the previous information that it has. But before we do that, let's take a recap of whatever we did in this section. So in this section, we just interacted with the HuggingFace Inference API. So we interacted with this model specifically through this endpoint. And all we did was to use an API key that we grabbed from our Hugging Face account. We hit this endpoint and we were able to get some responses based on the prompt. But we didn't just do that. We also told the model what we want. So before we sent the prompt to the model, we engineered the response that we expect from the model. So this is what we call prompt engineering. So you can use ChatGPT or anything, any um, AI out there to generate your or to do the prompt engineering. I personally wrote part of this all by myself, and I used ChatGPT to modify. So you can modify it to suit your use case. I was of the perception that let's say if this is to create a course and I just need to get this information to fill out a form, all I need to do is to tell the model that give me an answer based on on this particular format that I have given you. And that is why I have title, accept, and description. Also, I have a way to deal with profanity and adult content. I don't want the model to give me an answer when someone writes something profane or any adult content. So with that, I also have this as an instruction to say, tell me red flag if anyone writes something like that. So we can test that. Let's test that as well. So let's say let's use the F word, I want. So we use the F word and let's see, red flag. So you see, so the model tells us, hey, red flag, I'm here to assist you in educational content and blah, 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 which is pretty cool. Very, very cool. I like that. So this is what we did before we gave the prompt to the model. We engineered, or we told the model, this is how I want your response to be. Yeah, so that is what we did here. In the next section, like I've already mentioned, we'll be modifying this code so that the model becomes aware of our previous conversation that we have with it. And this will create a really cool chatbot experience that we are expecting. So thank you very much for making this far. If you really like my content, make sure to subscribe, like, share, and also leave a comment and let me know if you really liked this particular section. So see you in the next section.